Your monthly subscription box from postflybox.com includes all the materials needed to tie a dozen flies, along with some extra goodies. The Copper John, originated by John Barr, is one of the most effective nymphs ever devised. It's heavy, shiny, and all but irresistible to trout, bass, and panfish. It's one fly that does it all. This Copper John starts with a nice big size 8 hook and an oversized copper bead. Begin by inserting the point of the hook into the small hole of the bead, then working the bead around the bend and up the shank to behind the hook eye. Next, get the assembly firmly secured in the jaws of your tying vise. Solder wire is used to add additional weight and to help stabilize the bead on the hook. Get hold of the bitter end of the wire in the fingertips of your left hand and start making touching wraps up the shank with the coil held in your right hand. After 5 or 6 turns, helicopter the wire to break it off close. Leave some space between the wire wraps and the bead. Pick up a drop of superglue, here Fly Tire Z-Ment, and apply it to the hook shank between the bead and the wire. In one motion, slide the wire wraps forward into the back of the bead and hold them there under pressure until the adhesive sets. This will allow you to tuck in the tail end of the wire without all the wraps simply spinning around the hook shank. Next, load a bobbin with a spool of black unithread. Get the thread started on the hook shank behind the wire, and after taking a few rearward wraps, snip the excess tag off close. Wrap through and over top of the wire wraps to further stabilize them on the hook. Take rearward wraps to the start of the hook bend to create a thread base for the fly. Then, wrap forward until your tying thread hangs at about the hook point. Goose biots are used to create the legs and tails of the fly. Use the longer biots found around the midpoint of the strip. For the tails, snip 2 of them free. With the biot curving away from you, position one of the biots on the far side of the hook to form a tail approximately a hook shank in length. Trim the butt end of the biot off so it abuts the wire wraps, then secure it to the far side of the hook with tight wraps of tying thread. Now, repeat the same trimming and tie-in procedure with the second biot on the near side of the hook. The idea is to have the tails flare outward. After making sure everything is well secured, end with your thread at the back edge of the wire wraps. Select 2 strands of copper wire and align their ends. Abut the aligned ends against the solder wire wraps and take tight turns of tying thread to secure them all the way back to the base of the tail. Start taking wraps with the copper wire behind your tying thread. This will help the wraps stay sandwiched close together. Go over top of the solder wire wraps, then secure the copper wire to the top of the hook shank, leaving a little bit of space behind the bead. Snip the wire off, then pin down the butt ends with your fingers, then with wraps of tying thread. End with your thread at the back edge of the bead. Snip an inch-long segment of the opal tinsel free, then get hold of one end. Place the end on top of the hook shank and take thread wraps to secure it back to the start of the copper wire. And once again, wrap forward to the back edge of the bead. Next, pick up one of the rectangles of black plastic bag and snip free an 1/8 inch wide strip. Secure one end of the material to the top of the hook shank as you did with the tinsel. Peacock dubbing is used to form the thorax of the fly. Pluck an ample clump free from the packet. Use the dubbing to create a fairly robust 3-inch long noodle on your tying thread. Take wraps with the noodle to build up a bulbous thorax behind the bead. Pull the plastic bag material forward over top of the dubbing and secure it at the back edge of the bead with tight wraps of tying thread. Pull the material rearward and take wraps over the doubled over portion to ensure the material can't pull free. Then snip the excess off close. Tie the flashaboo down in the same manner and trim it off as well. The fly should now look something like this. For the legs of the fly, trim 2 more biots free. These will be tied in one at a time. With its tip at the base of the tail and it curving toward you, secure one of the biots to the hook right behind the bead. Here too, fold the forward pointing portion back and take wraps over top of it so it can't pull free. Carefully pull out and snip off that butt end nice and short. It should look about like this. Now, pick up the second biot and repeat the same tie-in and trimming procedure on the far side of the hook. Reach for your whip finish tool and use it to do a 5 or 6 turn back to front whip finish, then seat the knot well and snip your tying thread free. Pick up your head cement and use it to saturate the thread wraps behind the bead to ensure they don't come unraveled. And that's the Copper John, ready to catch just about anything that swims.